All right, guys, and we're live in the Dropship Tribe Facebook group, and also on the Dropship Breakthrough YouTube channel. So, if you've been hanging around the group or channel for a while now, you'll remember that I actually used to do lives in both of these locations fairly regularly, and we haven't really done it in the last, I want to say, probably 18 months. I think we might have done it once or twice, but look, it's something I'm going to bring back. So I think at least on some sort of regular cadence. So today we're doing basically an Ask Me Anything. So ask John any questions you might have about high ticket dropshipping, online business, anything that's buzzing around in your mind that you think I might be able to help you with, and I'm going to answer it here live. This is also going to get broken up into some of our podcast episodes on the Dropship podcast. So if you're checking this out and you don't listen to the podcast, definitely head to dropshippodcast.com and get subscribed there and start listening, or head over to YouTube. Our YouTube channel is, of course, youtube.com/dropship breakthrough. So what we've got today is we've got some pre-submitted questions, which I'm going to be answering, which were submitted in the Dropship Tribe Facebook group. And then as we have people coming on and listening live, and if you're already listening live, hello, you can leave a comment on this post or a comment below the video and ask any questions if you just went on live. So I'm going to sort of alternate between answering a pre-submitted question and a live submitted question. So feel free if you've just jumped on and you've got questions you would love to ask, just submit those. If you're on Facebook in the comment section, or anywhere else you would like to submit them. If you're on YouTube, there should be a space you can do that too. So let's jump right into it then. I'm going to start with some pre-submitted questions, which I'm taking in no particular order. So if you posted these, don't be offended if I don't answer yours first, but no particular order. I'm going to start with a question from Claire. Thank you, Claire, for your question. So Claire's question was regarding the jewelry niche. Would you recommend designing your own packaging under your own brand and sending to suppliers so they can fulfill their products with your branded packaging, or is there a better alternative? Okay, good question, Claire, and thank you very much for sending that in. So I think the first thing I'm going to say about this, which, I've got a couple of answers here which are a slight tangent to what you're saying. But the first thing I would say is that generally here at both for myself and I think Ben, the other side of Dropship Breakthrough and our podcast in this group, is probably that I wouldn't recommend doing jewelry at all. So certainly we're very focused on high ticket dropshipping. And yes, because, as many times we've sort of gone through why we think that's the best way to do drop shipping, and jewelry doesn't really fit into how we would select a market that we think is going to be a good one in the long term. And there are a number of reasons for that. You could probably say, obviously, jewelry can be high ticket, but there is a lot of low ticket jewelry out there, and I don't know which side of it you're in at the moment, but certainly if you're focusing on the lower ticket side of jewelry, that's probably not something I'd recommend you do in the first place. So if you are towards the start of your journey, that might be something to rethink. The next question I would ask in response to that question is, why do you want to have your products in your own packaging? So what's the motivator behind asking this question? So now a lot of people, I think, who ask this sort of question, and definitely Claire's not the only person to ask this, think about, they want to get their brand out there of their website, and all of that sort of thing. And, is that really necessary at this stage of your business? So most suppliers when you're dropshipping, will ship the product in their own packaging, right? And particularly if you're doing high ticket dropshipping, which is pretty much all we talk about here, you're going to be dropshipping from established brands in the market who people recognize, i.e. your customers recognize them, and are looking for those brands. So when the product turns up to their door in the brand's packaging, it's not actually a bad thing because that's the brand of the product that they're expecting to receive. And so there is not really, I mean, I personally, for dropship products, have never put them in my own packaging because honestly, it's just not necessary. It creates an additional set of hassles that you have to get suppliers to jump through. And think about, on a high ticket dropshipping site, I might have 20 suppliers, right? And so if I have to get packaging to them, not every product is the same size. So maybe you would need different packaging and all of that sort of thing. I've got to get it to all 20 suppliers, make sure they've always got it so they can ship my orders to my spec and all of that sort of thing. The work involved in doing that isn't actually worth the reward. Now, if your motivation behind asking that question was that you want to put your brand out there further, then yeah, look, there might be some options around getting your supplier to put an insert into the packaging from your brand, like a postcard or something like that, or putting some stickers on the packaging or something like that. But I don't think it's worth the time and expense of going to putting it in your own packaging. Now, if your motivation is that you're dropshipping stuff from somewhere like China and it almost always arrives in terrible packaging with all sorts of random stickers all over it and that sort of thing, well, my answer to that is going to be just don't dropship stuff from China and your problem is solved. It's not a problem. So definitely, Claire, I don't think it's necessary. Now, if it's really about branding and you want to push the brand of your business out there, which definitely a dropshipping business can be a branded thing, and you do want to develop a brand in your market that people know and recognize, I think, there are other ways that you can do that. So you can send things to your customers outside of the packaging. You can use online methods to communicate your brand to people, like email, retargeting, and all of that sort of thing. I don't think you really need to go to the extent of putting it in your own packaging. So that's my response to that one, Claire. Thank you very much for the question. I'm going to jump on now to a next question, pre-submitted question, which is from, let's jump into one here. A question from Cameron. Thanks for your question, Cameron. So Cameron asks, I've been talking to a supplier and their products are bespoke and made to order. We've been trying to work out the best arrangement, if any, for a situation like this. Is it best to ask them for a price for a spec of my choice? So that's a variation of the bespoke product of his choice, and then list that spec on my website at a set price. They did suggest doing it on a commission basis, and if the customer asked for any extras, I could refer the sale to them and they would give me a percentage of every sale that's come from my website. Is this something you have ever done, and do you think it's worth it in this business model? Not sure if it's worth noting, but these are really high ticket, so £20,000 plus. So Karen's obviously in the UK. Do you think that's too much? So there's a number of questions here from Cameron, and this is a good one because when you're high ticket drop shipping and selling more expensive products, it's not unusual to come across suppliers in those sort of markets who do produce a made to order product. And what that means is that it might come in different specifications and it's made to order. So the supplier may not have a set retail price for you to advertise it at. And it's kind of like a price on application type arrangement. Now that presents some challenges because it is a little harder for you to advertise a product in certain locations if you don't have a price for it and if you can't provide clarity as to what's actually included. So for example, you can't advertise a product on Google Shopping, which is one of our primary sales channels for high ticket dropshipping, if you can't list a price for the product, right? You just won't get approved to sell that product there. So that, the first part of Cameron's question, I think, is how you actually make this work. The second one is, would you do it on a commission rather than handling the wholesale sale yourself? I guess the last part of the question is the price £20,000, which I don't know what that relates to in US dollars at the moment, but it's certainly, I don't know, I think it's 15 or something like that, thousand. Okay, so the first thing to say is, yes, I have heard of this being done, and I've worked with people who have done it. I've only done a little bit of this myself. So on my very first website I ever had, I did used to sell some bespoke chandeliers. So really big ones, which I didn't sell a lot of, but they were very large. And so they were made to order. And so we would get usually from other businesses. I can think of one which was like a ballroom here in Australia that called me up and they were like, we want a big chandelier. It needs to be this many tiers. are you able to get hold of one of those for us because you don't have one on your website? And it turned out that I could. And we went through a process of identifying their specifications. I went back to the supplier, which was also the manufacturer. We talked about it, and they made one to order for that customer, and I handled the sale. And obviously, I agreed a purchase price with the supplier on that. So it definitely is possible, and I do know other people who have done it both on commission and both handling the sale through their website. So I would definitely say on the question of the commission, it would be my preference that you don't do it on commission, simply because it adds in an extra layer of, so if you do the commission, you're going to send the customer over to the supplier basically, and the supplier is going to handle the sale. And then after that sale is completed, they're going to pay you some amount of money, an agreed percentage or a fixed amount for producing that sale for them. So it's really an affiliate relationship. Look, I don't like that so much because you have to rely on the supplier paying you and paying you what you agreed to and all of that sort of thing. So it does add an extra little layer where that relationship can be affected or be broken. So preferably, I would say if you can find a way to take the payment yourself and then pass the customer's specifications onto the supplier for them to then produce and ship to the customer which is the traditional way that you're going to be taking your orders. I think that's the best option to do. Now, how to make it work on your site? I think there's a couple of options here, and what I would suggest you do is a hybrid model where you do both of the things I'm going to suggest. So I would definitely, for each of these products, get a spec or two of your choice. And you might even be able to learn this from your customers as to what's the most desirable, or from the manufacturer, the supplier, about what is the most common spec that they take orders for, right? What is the most common combination of features, of variations, etc., that they're producing this product in? Go with that one, right? The one that's going to get the most customers interested. Create a product page with a fixed price around that so that you can advertise that page as a way to get people who are interested in that product to come back to your site, right? So that means you can then advertise that product in places like Google Shopping, and you've got more traffic opportunities. Now, on that product page, though, I would make it quite clear in some way on that page, high up the page where customers can see it, that this product can be also made to order. And if people would like to do that, they should get in contact with your business. I would put my phone number, call us today to arrange your bespoke product or something along those lines, right? So the customer knows that, yes, they can buy that particular spec, but they can also call you up or contact you in some way and get one of these and talk about getting one of these things made to their particular requirements. So that's the first thing I would definitely do. But what I would also do is I would build a sales page on my website. So it would be like a page, like a Shopify page, and I would make it a sales page that talks about the product, walks through what the different options for the product are, the manufacturing process, about how it's bespoke, about the benefits of that, what customers can do with the products, basically sells the product in and what some of the options are, and then provides, once again, a way for the customer to talk with you about purchasing their own. So they're not actually going to purchase on the website. They're going to talk to you first. So whether that's you just have a click to call link, they click it, they're going to call your business. Or maybe you could use like a calendar tool, and you could actually do a sales call with people for that product. So you could use a tool like Calendly or Acuity or something like that, embed a booking calendar, and then just set times that people can book a call with you, like a 15-minute call or a half an hour call. You're going to jump on the phone with them and you're going to talk through that sales process. And I guarantee you, if you can get people on the phone to talk about this stuff, you're going to sell way more of these products than if you're just relying on selling them online. So, and at that price point, £20,000, it's well worth spending the time to get on the phone with people, because if you sell just a few of these a month alongside other products that you might have on your website, so say you sell 4 of these a month, that's £80,000 or more. That's a pretty good base for not a lot of work to make those sales and earn that money for your business. So I would do both of those things. And then on the product page, we've got the custom stuff. You could link to that sales page for people who want to get a bespoke version of the product. And then that sales page, you could also use that in marketing. So you could run, say, search text ads to that page for people who are searching for that product on Google. So you've got some options there, but that is the kind of hybrid approach I would take to selling that product. I would definitely be trying to get people on the phone to talk them through that sales process. I think if you can do that, your conversion rate is going to go up. And I would definitely work with, the price point is not too high. That's a great price point for a sort of bespoke type product. So that's the way I'd go through it. All right. Now I've got some live questions coming in. So I'm going to switch over to some live questions here. The first one comes from Juzzy123. Thanks for the question, Juzzy. I think I know who that is, but I'm going to say that's Justin. Justin's question is, what is your cutoff in terms of size and weight of products to dropship? I've experienced larger items are very expensive to arrange shipping for and leave little profit margins. Good question. Not an uncommon question when it comes to drop shipping. And please, if you're watching live, feel free to start submitting questions. We're going to get through and answer them all. So in answer to this question, I don't think there is a clear answer, right? Because there are a number of factors that are going to determine this. So, and as is the case with many things, many questions in marketing, in e-commerce, drop shipping, there's not a black and white answer. And I don't like giving black and white answers because it can lead people to missing opportunities. And yes, you could probably argue, well, it'll save people from making mistakes, but it will also lead to people missing opportunities of places where they could have, done some good and got ahead. So this is one of those cases. I think there are some factors to consider. So the factors to consider firstly is, what's the price of the product? Right. So if you're talking about two products that are both very large and or heavy, and one is, $10,000 and the other is $1,000, and the margin on those products is 30% each. Well, in dollar terms, what you're left with to deal with the cost of shipping, if you need to, is significantly different. And so you've got way more options on fulfilling that $10,000 product than you do on the $1,000 product. Like a very large and heavy product at $1,000 is going to be, in a lot of cases, a significant challenge to do profitably, I think. I'm not going to, by no means is it impossible, but there are going to be challenges there. Whereas if the products are at a higher price and you've got a decent margin from your supplier, then you've got more options. And I think you can often do that at a decent enough profit margin to make it worthwhile. So that's one factor. The next factor is, like, when it comes to shipping the products, what else is happening in the market? Like, how are other retailers shipping them? So if people are already selling these products online, how are they shipping them? Are they charging for shipping? How much are they charging for shipping? What shipping arrangements are they using? Can you identify those things from their website, or can you just call them up and ask them pretend you're a customer and ask them some questions about how they're going to ship that product to you, right? See what you can learn, because you can often learn about how to do it well from people who are already selling them. Now, not always, but often you can. And if you're entering that market, you need to obviously make an assessment about, well, whatever everyone else is doing with these products, can I match that and still make money? Now, if you're seeing people who are selling and shipping your products at a price that you look at it and say, how does that actually economically work? Like, they're not charging enough for shipping, or they're doing it with free shipping and they're still selling the products, but I can't see how they're making money because the price I'm buying them at is, it doesn't look like that's going to be possible. Well, then that's sometimes a scenario when you have to go back to the supplier and ask the supplier how they're doing that. Because I've found this before, that actually it turned out that my competitor was buying the products from their supplier at a lower price than I was. So i.e. they were getting a better margin, and they were able to do things on shipping that I wasn't able to do. And so I had to have a fairly straight conversation with the supplier about that kind of sucks for me. How do you think I'm supposed to make any money here? And that leads me into a conversation which I've talked about on our podcast before, about how you can use that as leverage to negotiate yourself better margins with that supplier. And the route I usually take there is, look, I don't want an advantage over my competition or anything like that. I just want a level playing field. So if you've already got retailers that you're paying a different margin to, or providing your products at a different margin to, can I have the same? Because I just want to be able to compete at the same level. And I'm pretty confident that, you know, the other things we do in our business will help customers to choose to go with us. So you kind of have to look at what other people are doing and can you match that? You know, if it's expensive to ship, then like more than most things, and you can't see how you can do it profitably, then charge the customer, right? I mean, there is nothing wrong when you're selling high ticket, large and heavy items. There is nothing wrong with charging your customer for the cost of shipping. You know, so, you know, they're very expensive to arrange shipping for, then charge for them. You know, some people won't want to pay the shipping. Some people will. Like, it's all going to come down to what are their other options to get that product. If they really want it and they can't get it anywhere with cheaper shipping, or they just can't get it shipped to them from anywhere else, then sometimes some people are going to pay you to ship it to them, even though it feels like pretty expensive shipping. And sometimes, you know, in places that have more regional and remote locations like Australia and very dispersed populations, there will be people who will pay more than you would think to have something shipped to them, because the decision for them is to drive 6 hours each way to get it from a physical retail store or something like that. And that the cost of doing that is actually even higher than the shipping that you're going to charge them. So, you know, I don't think there's any gray areas. I think there's a series of questions that you need to work through to answer that question about, you know, do you have a cutoff? Now, there may be a cutoff in your market based on those factors, sure. But, you know, that's going to be very dependent on your particular niche. Okay, so next question I'm going to jump over to is from Matthew. Matthew's live. Thanks for jumping on and asking the question, Matthew. Matthew's question is, I've noticed a few suppliers that also have their own products for sale on their site. They're not actively doing ads for them, though. Is this common? Could it be a problem when trying to become a distributor or a reseller for them? That's a good question, Matthew. Honestly, a question that does come up a lot from people who are getting into high-ticket dropshipping and doing this for the first time. So, good question. The answer, look, ultimately, is it a problem? The answer is no. It's not a problem. So it's not uncommon to see either. Suppliers, you know, manufacturers, they'll have a website usually, and often their website will have e-commerce functionality on it. As in, you will see there's a cart page, so people could add things to cart and buy them, but they're not actually doing any marketing. So in that scenario, it's fine, I think, to still work with them. And that's not going to pose any additional problems for you. I will say there was a period probably back around when I was first starting out where it was really sexy to add e-commerce functionality to your website if you did anything to do with products. And I think there were a lot of you know, web design and development companies running around spruiking to anybody who would listen that, oh, e-commerce is new, we can add this functionality to your website. And so a lot of businesses took them up on that, not realizing what it actually takes to make any money selling stuff online, and that it's not just a case of build it and they will come. And so there are a lot of suppliers that have that functionality on their website but don't actually make any use of it. They don't try to, and they never really intended to, because that's not the business model that they went into business to do. Their primary focus is selling to retailers like yourself and physical retailers, other online retailers, whatever it might be, and that's who they want to serve. So it's not a problem. If they're not marketing, if they're not paying for ads, then that means most customers are not finding them, right? They're not finding them online. And so there is plenty of space for you to market their products in, you know, obviously you're going to have other competition from other retailers, but it's not going to be the case where you put in a lot of work to drive traffic to your site and all of that sort of thing. And you know, the sale ends up going directly through your supplier's website. There are circumstances where that might be a concern, which is if the supplier is actively marketing their products in all the places that you're going to actively market your products. That is a more challenging environment to operate in, and you do need to keep an eye out for that. I'm not going to dig too much into the solutions or the thoughts around that, because Ben and I are actually going to record a podcast episode on that very soon, I think. But Yeah, in your scenario, Matthew, not a big problem. All right, following on, Juzzy says, thanks, John. Love the course, by the way. No worries, brother. Thanks for the question. All right, I'm going to do one more live question here, and then I'm going to jump back over to some of the pre-submitted questions. This question is from John, another John. Hey, John, great name, you legend. John says, my store is selling high-ticket coffee machines. I want to white label and dropship coffee beans. My question is, since it's a consumable, do you need specific licenses in order to sell the product? Thank you. John, cool. Well done for setting up a business selling high-ticket coffee machines. I think that's not a bad idea. I love coffee, so that's great. As far as I'm aware, you're white labeling it, but you're not the business that is packaging it. So if you're buying these things pre-packaged and sealed, you're not the producer of that. You're not actually the producer of that product. So whether or not there's specific licenses will depend on your country, of course, because what this comes down to is food standards, right? So there will be in any country regulations around the facility where those coffee beans are packaged and how they are packaged, and obviously labeling, so dates, use by dates and things like that. And that's going to vary country to country, obviously, because every country has their own laws around this sort of thing. So I would say certainly if you're worried about regulations, rather than relying solely on what I say, check in your local jurisdiction about whether there is anything that relates to you as a reseller, because even though you're white labeling it, you're still getting the product packaged by somebody else. So it's still not a product that you're producing yourself. You're just getting your own sticker slapped on the front, so it looks like it's coming from your brand. So as far as I'm aware, it's the regulation is regulatory requirement for licenses or any other things that have to be adhered to is going to lie with the company that owns and operates the facility where those coffee beans are going to be packaged, and or if they're processed prior to that step further up the supply chain, it's going to lie there as well, which may be in an altogether different country. So it's not your... I would recommend that you check that those facilities have they do meet the requirements of whatever your local food standards or food and health regulations say they need to meet. Because I think theoretically, and once again, this is not legal advice, I'll give that disclaimer, but I think if you do sell something that doesn't adhere to the requirements, possibly, and let's say somebody gets sick from using your products, possibly you could have a liability there. So you just need to make sure that they are checking the boxes, but it's not up to you to check the boxes for them, I guess is what I would say is my first immediate response. But always, I mean, this is a legal area, so it can help you to get actual legal advice if it is something that you're concerned about. So thanks for that. A little side question. Fernando asks, is this your first live? No, it is certainly not, Fernando. I've done plenty in the past. I just haven't done any in quite a long time. Cool. I'm going to jump over to another pre-submitted question now. This question actually came from Ryan Senders. A little bit of a self-interest question here, but I am going to answer it. Ryan asks, if I only had $500 disposable cash this month, should I invest it in your course, or should I take all the free content you provide and use the $500 towards ads, and why? Good question, Ryan. So at the moment, as I'm recording this, which is, if you listen to this on our podcast in the future, it's not going to be at this date. It's not going to be relevant anymore. We do have a Black Friday deal going right now, which we're running until the end of 2022, because we're going to be increasing our program prices on 1st of January 2023. And we want to give as many people as possible a chance to get in. So if you are watching live, you'll see a little thing going along the bottom of the screen here. That's where you can go to check it out. So we do have a little product at the moment that helps people get their business up and running, their first business up and running in the high ticket dropshipping space, which is at $497. So obviously with $500, you could purchase that. So Ryan's asking, should I do that, or should I take all your free content and provide, use that $500 towards ads? I'm going to say you should, I believe, still purchase our course with that $500. Look, I'll probably go back a step and say, if you only have $500 disposable this month and you're not in the foreseeable future going to have any more than that, now might not be the time to start a business, right? I mean, you're living on the edge there, is my assessment. Now, if you've got more money coming in, that's fine. But, once again, don't put yourself under undue financial stress to start a business. That's not the best idea ever, because your business may not produce returns as quickly as you hope it's going to. So that's an honest part of this answer. But let's just say, for the sake of the exercise, I would still invest it in the course. Now, the reason for that is that, yes, Ben and I do put out a ton of free information about how to do this business model, high ticket dropshipping, more than anybody else out there, right? Honestly. And it's all honest and factual advice rather than fluffed up crap that a lot of people on TikTok and places like that put out, right? Now, I'll be honest, that's the honest truth. And I'd love to see anybody challenge me on that. And so we do have people who consume our free content and start a business, right? Which is super cool. That was not actually what I thought would happen when we started doing the free content. But it does happen. I think it's uber cool and good on those people. Now, the challenge with that, though, is that, a lot of our free content is on our podcast. Some's on our YouTube channel, which is video-based, of course. A lot's on our podcast. And so it's difficult to get everything across in just the audio format, right? I mean, there's a lot. We give a lot away, and we certainly, I think, do give enough away to get something started there, for sure, because people have done it. But a lot of those people miss things. And that's simply because there is a level of nuance to building and starting a business and launching it that you just can't explain in ads. In ads on a podcast, or even, it would take a long time to get it all out there on our YouTube channel for free. And, we're certainly working towards getting more and more out there, but it's going to take time. So I think an example of this is, like, in that $497 program that we're doing at the moment, we have an entire module on how to run Google Ads, which is going to be your first traffic source for a high ticket dropshipping business. Now, I cannot explain to you. We've talked about how we do it on the podcast, but you can't see us set it up and do it. And there is literally no way to explain that in a way that will not lose people on a podcast, like exactly how to do it. Whereas in the course, it's 25 videos just on this particular topic in our program, right? You actually watch me set the whole thing up. I explain to you the reasons why I'm doing things the way that I explain all of the terms, all of the terminology that probably is going to seem like a foreign language to you if you've never run ads before. And so you just can't get that depth of knowledge across in somewhere like a podcast, or it's very slow to do it for a YouTube channel, for example. And so, because I've built the program and now with Ben's help since 2019, like, that's how much time has been put into our program. We're still building it out, still adding things in. So by buying the course, you get a depth of knowledge that you can't get anywhere else from us. And what that's going to do for you is it's going to significantly reduce the chances that you get something wrong, particularly when it comes to paying for your traffic. So in your example, you suggest maybe I could just start a business with your free content and then use that $500 for ads. The risk there is that if you do that and you get the ad stuff wrong, you're going to waste $500. And then you're going to have to come back and buy our course anyway. And then you're going to have to go back and fix your stuff. So you're going to lose time as well as money, right? Whereas if you get the course first, now it's going to take you at least 30 days to build and launch your business, right? So if you spend $500 now, it's going to be another 30 days for most people. Some people it takes a bit longer, some people it takes a little bit less. And before you're going to spend any money on ads, right? So by that time, can you save another $500 to start spending on your ads? Not to mention, when you set up a new ads account, you're going to get a coupon from Google, spend 500, get 500 for free, right? That's what they're doing at the moment, particularly in the US. So that would be my question. So I would suggest learning how to do it as best as you can now, so that you get everything as right as possible, and then launch your business and then spend money on ads, because you're probably going to get the ads right and increase your chances that you actually get some return on those ads. The other thing that you'll get by being in the program is you get our support. So once again, people who put things together for free from us, fantastic, but they don't have any access to me and Ben. So if you like to ask questions, what if something's not making sense? What if you can't work something out? If you're in our, once again, what if you get the market selection wrong? If you're in that program, you actually get access to us. So if you've got questions, if you can ask us. We do a market verification. So when you choose what products you want to sell or not, you can submit that to me and Ben, and we actually check it for you and tell you, yes, you've got that right. You're not wasting your time here. We think that's a viable market for you to sell in. Or maybe sometimes we say, no, whoa, don't do that. If you do that, we don't think it's going to be a good experience. You need to choose something else. So that's the other reason why I'd say be part of our community, because you get support while you're setting up your business, which for some people is a very, very valuable thing. So thanks for that question, Ryan. That's a good question. All right, back over to our live questions. Next question comes from Emad, who's submitted this over on YouTube, it looks like. Thank you very much for your question. So the question is, following you for a while and I get great value. For newbie making his first store, will I use a strict returns policy so I don't lose money that I can't bear, or I put a flexible one in that encourages buyers? This is a really good question, actually. I like this question, Emad, and it is an important one to think about when you're dropshipping. Obviously, when you're dropshipping, there are certain additional challenges with things like returns than if you have a warehouse where you're storing products and customers can return it to your warehouse, and then obviously you could just ship it out again to the next customer from your warehouse. Now, when you're dropshipping, the challenge is that most times you can actually return to your suppliers, but each of your suppliers may have a different returns policy. As in, some suppliers might say, well, you have a 14-day returns policy. Some might say you have a 30-day returns policy. Some might say it's a 7-day returns policy. And so if you've got 10 different suppliers and there's a variation in those terms, how do you come up with something on your website that will match those things in the best way possible? That's one challenge. The other challenge is, of course, is that for some people, they think about returns and think, well, I'm going to sell something for $2,000, let's say, and then what if a customer wants to return it, and then obviously I've got to refund them $2,000, and I might have already done something with that money, like spent it on ads or paid some bills with it or something like that. What if it happens 2 weeks later or something like that? So, and then I'm going to have to refund that money, and how's that? I'm going to have to foot the bill for that, and how am I going to deal with that? That sounds tricky. So then the next thing I think is, well, should I just have a really restrictive returns policy, or not have one, or maybe just say that you can only return things if they're damaged or something like that? So look, once again, this is, I think, one of those gray areas where I have a personal view on this, but at the end of the day, you will have your own risk tolerance. Now, and I think it's good to do things in business that makes you uncomfortable, because usually when you're doing something that feels uncomfortable, it's the right thing to do. That may sound totally counterintuitive, but often it is the case. So, but there's another thing to marry this against, right? If you want to sell a lot of anything online, and this is a very long-standing concept in selling and in marketing. You can look at any of the all-time great marketers, people who have made, created sales processes like Jay Abraham that, have produced billions of dollars in sales. One of the number one things everyone says uniformly is that you have to have some form of risk reversal. This is the marketing term. It's risk reversal if you want to sell a lot of anything. What that means is that you cannot have as your part of your sale that the customer must assume all of the risk in the sale. So you have to reverse the risk, because that's the default point in your customer's mind. If they go to your site and you don't have a returns policy, or you have an extremely restrictive one, as in there's almost no circumstances where they can return a product, they perceive that as the risk being on them only. You have no risk, and literally you don't. Right? I'm going to take your money. You can't send it back, so I'm going to get to keep your money regardless of what happens, right? You have no risk in that scenario as a business, right? And that what could go wrong, right? So that then leads the customer to say, well, I'm not prepared to carry that risk, so I'm not going to purchase from you, or I'm not going to purchase this product at all, or I'm going to go to a physical retail store and buy it, or whatever it might be. There's any number of options. So in order to encourage as many sales as you can, which is, as Emad says in his question, having a flexible policy that encourages buyers, is you have to reverse the risk from your customer to you. So the more risk you take on as the business owner, and remember, this is why business owners take risks, right? This may be hard for some people to say. If you want to be successful at business, you must accept a level of risk that things are not going to work out for you in any number of ways. That is why, not ultimately, most people do not own a business, is because they're not prepared to accept risk in their life. They want to play it completely safe. And ironically, there, is no safety in playing it safe. You know what I mean? You can go through your whole life playing it safe, you're still going to die, right? So you have to accept a level of risk. Now, obviously, how much risk, there is a balancing act there. Yes, you shouldn't accept unnecessary risk, or a level of risk that is going to create larger downsides in your life, and all of that sort of thing. So my approach has always been to have a very flexible returns policy. Usually I will start with a 30-day easy returns policy is usually what I call it, right? So customer can return within 30 days. But I have at times had an even more open one than that. I've even done an unlimited returns policy on a site before, and that for that particular site actually was not a problem. So yes, if you have a flexible returns policy, you are going to have some returns, right? And you are going to have to deal with them. How you deal with them is going to depend entirely on the market you're in and the supplies you have and all of that sort of thing. So I can't give you a one-size-all-fits-all answer for that. But I will say that over time, you will be able to manage that, and it's not going to be the death of you. For high-ticket products, you get a lot less returns than you're probably thinking if you haven't got started yet, or if you've looked at industry averages for the e-commerce industry as a whole. The returns numbers in high-ticket dropshipping are much lower. And the reason for that is a lot of it is psychology on behalf of the customer, right? Nobody goes into spending, let's say you're selling a $3,000 product. Nobody is buying a $3,000 product on impulse. Very, very, very few people do, right? People research first. They spend time working out what the right product is for them. They read blog posts, they'll be on forums, they'll ask questions, they'll go through, do customer service with you. They'll look at different options. They'll visit your site 7 times before they purchase something, read all about the product, right? So very few people buy it on impulse. Most people have thought about it for a decent period of time before they make that purchase. And so that means the chance of them then getting the product and going, oh, no, I don't really want this. It's probably a larger product, which high-ticket products usually are. So it's going to feel difficult to return just for the simple fact of how am I going to get it back to the people? And so you find that the returns are much lower for that reason. The products will usually be higher quality. So the chance that, and this is a difference between high and low ticket dropshipping, the chance that somebody gets a high ticket product and it doesn't match up to what they thought was advertised is very low. Whereas if you're dropshipping crap out of China, the chance that the customer is going to get it and it falls apart in 5 minutes, or it comes broken, or it just looks different to what they saw online is actually reasonable, right? That's a reasonable chance of that happening. And so the returns there can be super high just because the customer gets it and it's just not what they were expecting to receive. That's with high quality, high ticket suppliers, that is very low, right? And as long as you're making sure that what your supplier says you're going to get is what they're going to get, the chance that customers are going to get your product and be surprised is very, very low, right? So that's why I lean towards having a more flexible returns policy that does encourage people to buy and assumes more of the risk on me and my business than the customer assumes. Now, if you're in a situation where you just want to get started, but that's a real problem for you, you could start out with a more restrictive policy. I would certainly go with whatever lines up with your suppliers' policies at a minimum, or the most restrictive of your suppliers' policies at a minimum. But just know that that is going to have an effect on how many sales you make. That is going to make it a little harder for you to sell things because of that, particularly if your competitors in your market, so those other sites that are selling the same products as you, if they have a better returns policy than you, then your customers, a portion of your customers will realize that, and that will be a reason they buy from your competitors and not you. So your returns policy is part of your selling proposition to customers. It's one of the things that customers are considering when they are looking to make a purchase and they're deciding who to buy that product from. So the flip side of that, of course, is that you can use your returns policy as part of your unique selling proposition. So if you analyze your competition and see that everybody's got a 14-day returns policy and you go and implement a 30-day returns policy, that's a reason that you can post on your site about why people should buy from you and not from your competition. And that's something I did with my very first store that worked to good effect for me. So thanks for the question there, Emad. That's a very good one. All right, moving on to another live question from Fernando. Thanks for being here, Fernando, over on YouTube again. Any advice on calling suppliers? I've been approved for one, but I'm quite nervous on the phone, and plenty of them say they aren't considering new online retailers. Okay, yeah, definitely got some advice there. Good question. Quite normal, firstly, Fernando, to feel nervous when you're getting on the phone, particularly when you're new to all of this. I think most people do feel fairly nervous on the phone when they start calling suppliers. I certainly was. The first time I did it back in 2014, I was nervous as. And at the time, I was in a job where I did lots of public speaking. Like I used to do public speaking in front of hundreds, sometimes thousands of people, like on a stage with a microphone and all of that sort of thing, which I went fine with. But when it came to calling suppliers about my business, I used to get super nervous about it. It was so weird, such an unusual feeling at that point in my life. But so that's normal. You get better at it and you get less nervous at it though as you go. But that's normal. When a supplier hits you with an objection, and this is, I think, really what you're asking for advice on, those suppliers that aren't considering new online retailers. When you're hit with an objection, it's always important to dig into that, right? See what's actually behind that objection. So if somebody calls up and I call somebody up and they say they're not considering new retailers right now, and that's not an uncommon thing to hear from suppliers who aren't in the positive immediately. It is one of the common objections. I'm not saying it's a common response to get from all suppliers, but it is a common thing you might hear. Sometimes, particularly at this time of year. So at the time of recording this, you'll know if you're on the live that it's December. It's end of the coming towards the end of the first week of December, and it can be a time of year where more suppliers kind of start winding things down for the year, and they might not want to consider new retailers until the new year. I think you might hear that a bit more at this sort of December, early January. But the first thing I'm going to ask them is why, right? So respectfully, you're asking this in a respectful way. You're not getting cranky or anything about the response, but you're asking them respectfully. Okay, fair enough. Do you mind if I ask why you're not taking new retailers now? Like what's the reasoning behind that? And so, but regardless of what the reason for them raising an objection, you always want to counter the objection with, okay, I hear you. Do you mind if I ask why that is? Right? Because often and this is when you're selling anything, this is the case, right? If you're selling a product to somebody and they say, oh, no, I don't think I want to buy it. You say, all right, why is that? right? Because often the reason why somebody's objecting or behind that objection is a reason. There's a deeper reason, right? That's not the actual reason why they're saying no. There's another reason below that. And so, and it might be another 2 levels of reasons below that. And so when you start digging into them, you can get down to those things. And often it's something that you can propose a solution to that is going to turn that objection around. Or maybe there's a misconception that they are holding that you can actually address for them and say, well, actually, no, this is how it happens. And in knowing that, they can then say yes, because it becomes easier for them to say yes because you've addressed that misconception. So for this one, I would say ask them why, see what the reason is that they're not accepting new online retailers. It could just be that it's the time of year. Once again, it's December and they're like, oh, we're just not doing that right now, but we'll be coming back to it in the middle of January or something like that. Or it could be that they feel that they're at capacity stock-wise, so they just are having difficulty getting enough stock into their warehouse to have more people selling their stock. Those are two of the things that sit below that reasoning that I've heard before. And so obviously, if somebody says you that and they're like, it's just the time of year, we'll be coming back to it in January, something like that. Well, just say, great, fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to talking to you in January, and you just move on from there. I don't think there's anything that you can necessarily do to turn that one around, and it's a short time period, so just sit with it. Get on with building your business and doing other things in your business, and you're going to come back to them and have that conversation again. If you were getting something like stock levels, or we're worried that we'll be oversold or something like that, I would still use that as a way to get my foot in the door. I'd be saying, look, that's okay, right? We're still getting ready to launch our business. We're still a little bit off making sales. And this is all true, by the way, at this point in time when you're talking to them. We're not going to be selling large volumes of your products immediately. Okay. We're building a long-term business here. We're not in a rush. So why don't we just go ahead and get an account set up, right? And we're going to go and launch in a little while, and then we're going to start seeing what the demand is on our website for your products, and we'll gradually ramp things up, which will give you enough time to determine whether you need to, on future orders of your products from wherever you're getting them from, whether it's from your direct manufacturing plant or if you're working with another manufacturer, you can gradually increase your holding of these products to, meet the demand that we are hopefully aiming to drive for you. So once again, if you just go it like that, right, you've reduced the level of fear for them by just saying, look, it's not going to, even if we sign up, it's not going to have an impact now. We just want to start an account, start a relationship. We've got to set your products up on our website. We've got to optimize them, all of that sort of thing. It's going to take time. You're reducing the barrier for them in saying that. And that won't necessarily get every single one of them over the line, but it will get some of them over the line, right? I mean, I've successfully used that response. So, but that's the framework you want to kind of work through whenever a supplier is giving you an objection of some sort. Don't just leave it. Don't just get the objection there. Oh, okay, bye. And then never come back to them. Like, this is your business. Like, this is not something that you can just let lie. You have to be a bit tenacious with suppliers. Keep calling them back. Find what the real problem is at the base level and present solutions to it. Solve their problem for them. And, they're going to feel much more positive towards you. So thanks for that question, Fernando. All right, I'm going to move back to a pre-submitted question here. Nice, easy one here. This one is from Drew. Drew asks, so I'm based in Western Australia. I'm currently setting up my virtual address for my business. I have a few questions. Would it be more beneficial to operate through an East Coast address, so I'm more relevant to the majority of people in Australia, or would it be better to operate under a West Coast address and risk losing East Coast buyers due to their local mentality? Also, is a virtual address even necessary to begin with, or can it wait 6 months down the track? All right, Drew. So that's an interesting question. And it's probably a fairly Australian-centric question. For anybody who's outside of Australia, Australia is a very large geographical country. It's the same size as the US geographically, and yet we have less than 1/10 of the population. So our population is very spread out. So West Coast to East Coast is a long way. It's a long way to ship products, I can tell you that, with very little population in between. And we do kind of in this country have a bit of an east-west thing. We have a bit of a north-south thing as well. I guess that's fairly common amongst countries. And so Drew's concerned about whether that will impact his business. The majority of our population does live on the East Coast. So, Drew, what I would probably say is that it doesn't matter. Very few customers. You do need to have an address for your business. If nothing else, not even so much for your customers, more for organizations like Google to get approved with Google and that sort of thing. Now, whether that's for Google's sake, whether that's a virtual or a physical address, both can work. I've used my home address on businesses, I'll be honest. Customers are not magically going to rock up at your door because they think your business is based there. But I don't think it matters, East Coast to West Coast. What I would be saying, and what I say on my pages like my shipping page and things like that, is I would be saying our products ship from warehouses around the country, right? Which is true. You are going, if you've got 10 suppliers, I guarantee you you're going to have a supplier in Queensland. You're going to have suppliers in New South Wales. These are different states in Australia for anybody anywhere else in the world that doesn't know. You're going to have suppliers in Victoria. You probably might even have some in Adelaide or WA, right? I've had them there, and I'm based on the East Coast. So my products have shipped from WA to customers. And so that kind of, if there were any mentality that was holding a customer back, then that is what's going to deal with it for them. It's not your address. It's completely normal in Australia and any other country for a business to have a headquarters, but warehouse products around the country to cut down on shipping times and logistics. So it's very common. It's not going to be unusual for customers to see that, but that's what I would suggest you do to counter any of that mentality. All right. Flipping back over to live questions here. I'm going to go Facebook user. So apologies to the person who asked this question. You haven't given Facebook permission to post your name here. So just excuse the fact that I don't know what that is. What's the ideal amount to start with on daily ad spend, and what would be your minimum? So my ideal and my minimum are the same thing. So I recommend $30 a day. If we're talking about high ticket dropshipping here, we're going to be starting with Google ads, primarily Google shopping ads. I suggest people start with $30 a day. That's what we recommend in Dropship Breakthrough, our course. The reason for that is, and I don't recommend you go much lower than that. I guess you could go as low as 20, but I absolutely would not go lower than that. The reason for that is that I've found over time, and look, I'm not just managing my own accounts. I used to have a little marketing agency. I've managed about 100 other people's accounts. I find that $30 is the best mix between spending an amount that's not going to get out of hand too badly, if you don't happen to make as many sales as you want to initially, and also getting enough data to make decisions about what's happening with your ad spend. So the risk of not spending enough is that things just happen so slowly and you get so little data coming into your account that you can't make any assumptions about what's right and what's wrong, about what you should do to optimize your traffic, about how you should improve your campaigns, about what's happening on your website. You're just not getting enough people onto your website to give you any meaningful feedback in a time to make any momentum up. And so that's the danger with going to it. I see people who are like, I'm going to start with $5 a day. No, bad idea. You're going to get nowhere with that. And it comes back to that conversation I was mentioning, I think, in response to Emad's question around risk. You have to take a little bit of risk here. If you're not prepared to spend $30 a day and potentially not get an immediate return on that, then running a business is going to be a difficult experience for you. I mean, I'll be completely frank and honest and open with that. Whatever you spend on advertising, you have to be prepared to live without that money. There are no guarantees. This is business. There are no guarantees. You can do everything in the world to give yourself the best chance of success, follow the right system, follow the right strategy for your ads and all that sort of thing. But there is never a guarantee that you are going to get an immediate return on money that you spend on marketing. So that's what I'd say. But $30 is my number. If you want to spend more than that initially because you have you have the ability to, or you have that a buffer to do more than that, fine. You're going to learn more quickly, and as long as you're on top of managing your ads, then you're going to learn more, and you may make faster progress. But you don't have to do more than that. So thanks for the question there. All right, moving along. We've got Juzzy's got a follow-up question in here. Good on you, Justin. Do you still recommend selling in an enthusiast-based niche if we are potentially going into a recession where people are less willing to spend? Would you sell necessity high-ticket items instead? So I have, thanks for the question, man. I have had this question a lot recently. Obviously, in most Western countries, at least where we do high-ticket drop shipping, there is, very unpredictable economic times happening. Most countries' interest rates are up. There's lots of talk about recession, whether or not the country you're in is actually in recession yet, technically or not. There's a lot of talk about it. The media is pumping this stuff really hard, the negative, the negative, the negative. And so I guess there is a lot of fear out there, and I'm sure there are people out there who are feeling the effects of those conditions, whether it's on home loans or mortgages or whatever. So, it's an interesting question. A lot of people are asking it about whether we change our business, our approach to this business based on that economic cycle. My answer is no, I don't. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, the first big reason for me is that whenever I start one of these businesses, it's going to be a long-term business, right? Now, as in, I'm not planning to run it for 1 or 2 years. I'm planning to run it for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Now, yes, I may sell it before then or something, but I don't start a business with the plan that I'm going to sell it in 3 years. I think that's a poor way to start a business, because it's automatically going to restrict your thinking if you're aiming to do something in the short term. And I don't really start these businesses these days if I'm starting with a plan to sell. That's become less and less of an option that I like over time, which is probably another question and another conversation. But so if I'm aiming that I'm going to be running my business in 5 to 10 years, then the current economic cycle, and yes, obviously nobody can predict exactly what's going to happen in 6 months or 12 months based on what's happening right now, right? Nobody can crystal ball this and say exactly what's going to happen, but we can look a little bit at history and glean something from that. So for me, and this is my personal belief, you can think I'm wrong, whatever, I don't care. I don't believe this is going to be a long-term cycle that we're going through right now. I don't think personally we're far enough in to say that, or that there are enough things happening to suggest that we're in some people are out there going, like, we're in some catastrophic decline, and we're just going to keep spiraling down until we're all eating each other. Like, that is absolute pure nonsense and fiction, right? You have no evidence of saying that. There is none, zero. And so I don't think that's the case. And part of me goes back to 2008, right? As being a fairly recent event in history, the global financial crisis, which was bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to diminish what happened there in any way. It was bad for a lot of people, right? But it didn't really last that long. Like, when you looked at it in 2008, people were saying similar things to what they're saying now. It's the end of days. It's terrible. The media is bashing it up to the nth degree. Everybody's fearful. And then, 18 months later, Wall Street's making record profits. All of these massive companies have formed, and now they're the darlings of the world right now. Were started in that time, right? And yes, there was pain, but in the years following that, I made tons of money from real estate, selling it at record price. Like, you know what I mean? So I just don't think at this point that things are bad enough that I think we need to change the direction. I think, yes, it's quite possible that there may be in some markets people buying less. And so sales may be depressed as a result of that. And if you're going to run a business if you're planning to be in business for the rest of your life, you are probably going to go through multiple cycles like this. And you can't just knee-jerk reaction every time something starts to happen. Things are going to turn. Things are going to get for the better. And guess what? If you're in the right niche when things turn to the better, then holy moly, you're going to make a lot of money. Whereas if you try and pile into the good niches when things are getting better and you're the last one in, you're not going to make much money out of that. So it swings and roundabouts, and I think we're going to see a swing, not tomorrow, probably not in 6 months, probably maybe not even in 12 months. But, if you look at 10 years, I think there's going to be a change in the other direction in that time period. So I'm not changing anything, no. But I also don't necessarily buy into the argument at this point that people with more money are spending less, right? So when we're selling high ticket products, we're not aiming for the bottom end of the market financially, like people with lower financial capabilities, right? Or that's not who you're selling high ticket products to in the beginning. So that's not your market. Now, at this point, as far as I understand it, and once again, not being an expert, the majority of where the pain is being felt at the moment is people who are already on the borderline, i.e., people who don't have a lot of disposable income to begin with because their mortgage may be a little too large to what they should have, and all of that sort of thing. And if that's you, that's not me criticizing you, but that's the reality. It's those people who are not spending much. But a lot of those people would not have been your customers anyway because they already didn't have much disposable income. Now, if you look at somebody like me, and I'll use me as a personal example, I have a decent amount of disposable income each month. I do buy high ticket products. I haven't changed my spending behavior at this point, and I don't foresee that I will, particularly in the coming little while. So if I was somebody who was in an enthusiast niche, I would still be spending, right? I would still be spending money right now. So, I don't necessarily agree that in the down times everybody is worse off or that everybody has no money. So, and sometimes, like I would say, people who are passionate about something will spend money on their passion before they spend money on necessities, right? So I actually think in some cases necessities, like let's use a necessity-based high-ticket product, a refrigerator, right? So everybody has a refrigerator in their house. That's deemed as a necessity. We don't high-ticket drop ship those. One, because the brand names are too big. Now that's not going to change in a recession. So if you say you want to switch over to necessities, it's still not going to be easier to work with a company that manufactures refrigerators to drop ship them. They're not going to start saying yes, right? In a lot of those cases, the reason we don't drop ship necessities is because you can't drop ship them. That's not going to change. So that's not really an option. So, but a refrigerator, if I'm passionate about something, I've got a refrigerator, it's still working, but maybe it's not amazing. I'm probably actually not going to upgrade my refrigerator during a recession because I don't really need to. I mean, yes, if the thing explodes and it completely stops working, then yes, I'm going to obviously go and get a new one because I've got to store food. But once again, somebody with more money doesn't tend to have a refrigerator sitting in their home that's about to explode. They already have a decent one. And yes, it might be a few years old. And yes, they could probably upgrade it. But if they don't need to, why would they? And most of people at that point don't need to upgrade these things. So they're going to do the thing they love before they spend money on that, right? That is definitely, I believe, the behavior in the high ticket space. So yeah, not changing anything. Good question though, Justin. Thank you very much for sending that one in. All right. I'm going to go down to Ryan. Ryan's asked another question. Thanks for your earlier question. Ryan's question is from YouTube once again. When you call a supplier, how do you know who to talk to? That's a good question, Ryan. So when you call up a supplier, particularly if it's a larger company, which might have a lot of employees, often you'll get the receptionist, right? If you're just calling the number off the website, you're going to get the receptionist or the gatekeeper, as they might otherwise be termed. And once again, if you're a receptionist, no insult to you, you're doing your job. But that person may make it difficult for you to find the right person to talk to. They are definitely the person you want. They are definitely not the person you want to talk to, right? So you do need to try and determine who is the person in that organization that is going to be most likely the person who has the authority to approve your request. So in a smaller company, that may be the business owner. Like if you're talking about a family business, it's going to be whoever's listed as the business owner often. In a larger corporation, they're going to have a division for sales, and it's probably going to be a sales manager or the sales manager, the national sales manager, or it might be a regional sales manager. I certainly know in the US, big suppliers over there will break the country up into regions, and usually you'll end up talking to a regional sales manager, and that's the point of approval for you. So you need to identify, if you can identify who that is, if you're worried about speaking to the right person, or if you're having some difficulty with the gatekeeper, sometimes they just aren't very helpful. Going and doing a bit of research into that company and finding out who is likely to be the person that you want to speak to. So you might look at the company's website and see who, they'll go to the About Us page. They'll say, here's our team. You can see who's the people at the top, who's the sales managers. They might have that information on their website, and then you can try call back to that company and say, hey, can I speak to such and such? And see if you can get through to them there. If you're having trouble getting to that person, you might know who you want to talk to. You're having trouble getting to them once again through the gatekeeper. They're just like, oh, you've got to call back in these times, or oh, I'll get them to give you a call back, and then they never call back. There are a couple of potential backdoor options for you. So you can get onto LinkedIn, see if you can find that person on LinkedIn, right? So LinkedIn, if you don't know, it's kind of like a social network for business people or people in business. You can search people there. You can search that company and see which of their employees might be connected to them on LinkedIn. And oftentimes you can find some contact information for them on LinkedIn. But you can also message them directly on LinkedIn. So if you don't have an account, you can create one. You can message that person on LinkedIn, and you might get connected with them there. Or you might find their contact information and get them there. The other option you can do is you can use an online tool like hunter.io. And if you know the email domain for that corporation, they're at blah, 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 whatever their URL is, .com, you can put that into, not hunter.io, or maybe hunter.io does do it. But there are tools where you can put that information in, and it will identify all of the listed email addresses for that domain. And so if you know the person's name, you can then find their email address, their direct email address, not the company email address, their direct email address from the list, and you can send them an email as well, which once again, email isn't the ideal method of contacting suppliers, but that can help you to get a message directly to that person if you're really finding it difficult to get in contact with them. But yeah, if you can find the person's name, even if sometimes the gatekeeper will tell you, but they just won't put you in touch with them, right? Just internet stalk them a little bit, right? Honestly, in a non-creepy way. But see, oftentimes people's phone numbers will just be online. Like, you can put somebody's name into Google and type blah, 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 phone number, or blah, 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 company name, phone number. And there will actually be, it will be on a web page somewhere that Google can find, and you'll just find it, and then you can contact them directly on that phone number. So look, there's some pointers. I hope those are helpful for you, Ryan. All right. So I'm just looking here to see if we've got some more questions. I got a question here that was pre-submitted from Christian. Thank you, Christian, for your question. Christian says, hi, John. My question is, when finding your market/niche in the first stages, how much consideration do you give to the non-high ticket related products that can be sold via the same store? An issue I'm finding is the lower priced items in the niche are the ones that get the higher search traffic in the research phase. The high ticket items don't get as high search volume. Right? Good question, Christian. I'd say it doesn't matter too much. I think that's not unusual to see. So higher ticket products tend to have less customers for them than lower ticket products. So, and that's not a bad thing, right? Now, yes, you do need to make sure that the high ticket products have enough search volume behind them So in our program, we talk about what those volumes are and everything. Christian, you're in there, so you'll have access to that. So as long as the high ticket items are at a reasonable level, then it doesn't really matter. If you know, so yeah, I don't think there's a real connection there between the search volume of the high ticket items and the lower ticket items. I mean, it's good to know what the search volume is on the lower ticket items. I mean, you're still going to sell some lower ticket products on a high ticket dropshipping site, right? And oftentimes they can be good sources of traffic. So let's say in Christian's example, he's sort of identifying the 200 to 400 pounds. Once again, Christian must be in the UK. But let's say £200 to £400, $200 to $400, $300 to $500, somewhere in that range. You're still going to have some of those products on your website, and you can still sell those and make a small profit. Okay, so it's not to say you shouldn't sell them or you can't sell them, because oftentimes those products are complementary to the higher ticket products. So let's say you've got a $3,000 product. Oftentimes there will be like $400, $200, $300 products that customers use alongside that high ticket product. There might be add-ons that extend the capability of it. They might be accessories or something like that. You absolutely should be selling those, right? Because even selling a $300 or $400 product, you can still make some profit, and you can use it as an upsell. You can bundle it. You can do so much with that sort of stuff. So it's good to know the traffic. And sometimes, at that sort of, I'd call that sort of a mid-level price, right? A mid-tier price. It's not low ticket, like true low ticket. It's just not high ticket, right? So you can still advertise products sometimes in that price range. It's going to depend on the margin. But if you can sell those sort of mid-level products at break even or better, then what you're doing is you're acquiring customers that you didn't have before. And those customers will be in the market for your high ticket products at some point. It's very likely. And so if you can get people in on those mid to lower ticket products and then upsell them later, or get them back to purchase from you 6 months later on the high ticket products, that's a real win. And so sometimes the £200 to £400 products are excellent entry points to your business. If you take a more of a customer lifetime value and a long-term view of your business, which, as I've already mentioned once today, you should be building for the long term, not the short term. You're going to find that those can be a real benefit for your business. But certainly, to go back to the original point, the high ticket products do have to have enough traffic behind them. Now, the volume of traffic in each country varies a little bit, and you do have to take into account that, if you're using a search traffic research tool like Ubersuggest or something like that, when you put just the root keyword for that high ticket product in, it's going to spit you out a number, which just relates to that one version of the search term. So don't rest on that just in and of itself, because there will actually be much more traffic for those products, because there are many, many variations on that search term that customers will make that you're not immediately seeing. And so usually, like if you put in, like, let's say I'm going to sell, let's say I'm going to sell a pellet grill. If I just put pellet grill into Google, it's going to tell me that for that particular exact search term, there might be 20,000 searches a month, right? I'm not just going to rest on that, because there's going to be so many variations that come off the word pellet grill that will probably add another 20 to 50,000 in like relevant amounts of traffic onto it. And so that would be, you've got to take that into account, I think. So I hope that answers your question, Christian. Thank you very much for it. All right, switching back over to live questions. Here's one submitted from Facebook. Question: what is the best first step to finding supplies in the US? I find it difficult just finding them. Love your podcast. I listen to it every day at work. Thank you so much for listening at work. I'm so glad that your employer is paying you to listen to our podcast. That always makes me very, very happy. So the best first step to finding suppliers in the US is making sure that you're in the right market. Okay, so if you're going through the market selection properly, you part of that should be planning to go into a market or a niche where there are suppliers, identifiable suppliers. So assuming that you've done that, as in you can see, and so can you see when, like, once again, let's say I'm going to sell pellet grills, right, in over there in the US. What I'm going to do is, like, I've thought of that as an idea. I've gone, right, pellet grills, yeah, high ticket, yep, passionate market, yeah, to a certain extent. I'm going to think about selling that. So my next step's probably going to be, firstly, is I'm going to go to other websites that sell pellet grills, and I'm going to see what brands are they selling on their website. So those brands are your suppliers. So if I go to a pellet grill website and I can identify 6 different brands of pellet grills, then that's 6 suppliers, right? Each of those brands, assuming they're all separate companies, is going to be a supplier. So there, I've got 6 suppliers. So I'm going to go through all the prospective competitor sites and just see how many individual brands I can see there. The other thing you can do is go into Google Shopping and search for pellet grills, and Google will often give you a list. If you click into the shopping tab, it will give you a list down the left-hand side of the page of the different brands in the space that are relevant to the pellet grills, that search. Once again, they can give you an idea. Then I'm going to get, if that's leaving me short, I would be jumping onto Google, and I'm going to be searching things like pellet grill suppliers, pellet grill manufacturers, pellet grill brands, pellet grill importers, pellet grill distributors. These are all variations on the search term. I'm going to see what websites are coming up. Now, there might be some websites that list out brands. There might be, individual brands' websites come up. And so I'm going to use that to identify them as well. In some markets and niches, there will be an industry website. These are usually, if you've got one of these, this makes it super, like, let's say there's an industry body. I found this in sometimes more technical spaces, but there'll be like an industry association or something that all of the suppliers are a part of, all of the manufacturers in that space are a part of. Usually those industry associations list all of their members on their website, on the front page of their website, or there's a link to it, right? And so you can go and see, because it's like an advertising tool for the members of that association. They'll say on their website, we're a member of this association. It's a good thing, apparently. So they tend to advertise it. So it's usually public information. And so you can see the list of their members, which immediately identifies them as a manufacturer of whatever the industry's in. Right. So then you can go from there to their website and see if they have the type of products you want. If they do, then you've identified them as a supplier. So that's what I would say. Go through those steps, and if you're going to other, if every of your competitor sites has no brand names for their products or anything like that, then that might be a bit of a red flag for me about that market in particular. Now, there are some good markets out there where there isn't a lot of brand recognition and there aren't many brand names or anything like that. But there are also a lot of ones like that just aren't good niches to be in as well. So that might be, once again, potentially a bit of a red flag for me about that market if you don't see any identifiable, going through the processes I've just talked about. If you can't see any identifiable brand names, that might be a reason why you shouldn't sell those products in the first place. So thanks for that question. Next question, live once again, Facebook. Is it possible to host a business like this under the age of 18? Good question. And we actually get this a lot these days. And one of the things I think is very exciting is that so many people under the age of 18 are already thinking about getting into business and an online business in particular. I think if I contrast that, and I'm going to sound like a semi-old person here, but if I contrast that to when I was 17 or 16 or something like that, the thought of starting your own business was, extremely foreign, difficult, felt very difficult. I know people did it back then, but it was super rare. We get people under the age of 18 all the time, looking to start a business. And I think that's super exciting. I think, maybe one of the upsides of social media in some ways is that people do get exposed to possibilities. There are a lot of traps for young people online, I think, because, and not to be condescending, but you're probably still developing a little bit of a bullshit detector. And so for somebody who's not been around this stuff long, it can be hard to spot the bullshit opportunities from the good ones. But is it possible? It is possible, yes. We do have, I mean, we have people in our program who are under the age of 18, which, and there's some really hungry and cool people there who are doing some cool things and making some progress. There's a couple of things to be aware of, though. I mean, you can't get a credit card, for example, when you're under the age of 18. Now, you don't need a credit card either. I'm going to say that. That's not necessary, but just be aware you can't. And you also can't, and once again, I'm not going to hand on my heart this for every single jurisdiction, but I don't believe you can form a company or that sort of thing by yourself. So that's something to bear in mind as well. So could you do this in conjunction with your parents, for example? Yes, that's an option. Now, it might not be an option that you like the thought of, but that is an option to have somebody who is a person you trust in your life, who is an adult, to help you get started. And so that it's possible to do. There may be a few additional challenges there, but it is possible to do. And if you're thinking about it, I would say, getting into online business, and you want to give yourself a head start into the business world, because at that age you have so much time that you don't have to rush. You don't have to move quickly. You got so much time of you in your life to get this right, or to get something right, that you can probably screw it up a few times. It's not going to make any difference to your life whatsoever, right? And that's a really exciting place to be. So I would say it's possible. Give it a go. You don't need to rush. If you're not far off 18, you're going to be 18 soon, then some of those things aren't much of a concern. So you can do it, definitely. Cool. Moving on. Question coming in from YouTube from Will. Hey, Will. Will says, just joined your course about 2 weeks ago and I'm loving it so far. I've got a question. Do you think that very niche markets, something that caters for a very particular audience, are workable in terms of selling in a smaller country such as Australia? Good question, Will. And we do have people who are starting these businesses in places like Australia, the United Kingdom, Canada, which have a considerably smaller population than, say, the US, which is we tend to talk about most things in US terms, and the population there is much larger than in some of the other countries where high ticket dropshipping can work. So this is probably one of the things that I do suggest people modify a little bit in terms of the business setup stage in those smaller countries. So I think that, yes, the answer, no, sorry, the reverse. I'm just reading your question again. No, I wouldn't go for a very niche market in a smaller country. And the reason for that is not that you won't make any sales or that you can't build a good business. It's just that you're going to run out of runway. You're going to run out of takeoff runway, right? Because it's going to, if it's a very niche market, it's going to be a very, very small market too. And so you could very much say that you're going to corner that market fairly easily. Like you're going to get your foot in the door, and you may, depending on the level of competition, because you've still got to check that. If it's too competitive and it's a really small market, you probably stay away from it. But if you can get your foot in the door, you could become quite a big fish in that small market very quickly. And so you might make faster progress initially than you would in a much larger market, but you're going to hit the limits of that market really quickly. And so your business may grow quickly and then plateau, right? And then you're going to be sitting there thinking, okay, so what am I going to do here in the long term to keep this thing growing? Because it may plateau before it gets to the level you would like it to get to, just because there's not enough customers there to grow it further. So whereas if you go into if you start a bit broader, it's going to be a bit bigger in the beginning, which means it might start a bit slower because it's going to take you a little bit longer to get your foot in the door in some cases, but your growth zone is a lot bigger, higher, longer, and so you can take that to more places. And so I think for smaller markets, usually what I recommend people do is to start a bit or set your business up with a bit of a broader approach in mind. Now, the definition of your market or your niche still needs to be related items that you're primarily going to sell to one ideal customer. But, you know, for example, if I think about, let me think of an example here. If I think about, like, I'm going to sell surfboards, right? Now, surfing's a bad example for Australia because we have a large surfing population, but it's an okay example. I wouldn't just start a business that sells just surfboards. For example, let's assume this is actually a smaller example, but I might sell a store that sells boards, a board store, right? So you've got different, wakeboards, for example, snowboards, surfboards. Why? Because there's a lot of crossover between those products. There are a lot of people that surf and do other board related sports. Not everybody, right, for sure, but a lot of people do, right? So there's crossover there. And so that gives me automatically then a bigger market. It gives me a bigger market, not just because there are more potential people to go into there at any one time because there's more types of products, but it also gives me an ability to, a better ability to sell to the same customer more than once, right? Because not only could somebody buy multiple surfboards from me, but they might buy multiple surfboards and multiple other boards from me, right? If they are into some of those. So it gives me being able to resell in a small market. It gives you kind of like a force multiplier. It makes a smaller market bigger by definition if you focus more on having avenues to make multiple sales to the same customer. So yeah, don't go super specific in Australia, go a little bit broader, or at least set your site up so that it can be broader down the track. So how you name your business, what your domain is, set it up so that it can do better down the track. And I think that's the way to do it. Even if you start with a very narrow selection of products, aim to expand it over time and set your business up so that, if I call my site the Surfboard Warehouse and then I start selling snowboards, it seems, people know me as the surfboard place. It seems a bit strange sometimes to then go and sell something else. Not always, but it can do. So just think a bit ahead and that'll get you in the right direction. Thanks for the question, Will. All right, next question from a Facebook person. I don't have the name. When you are picking your niche, how worried should you be on the size of your competitor and their SEO experience? Look, I think I don't overanalyze this stuff. So I definitely want to be looking at how many competitors are in the market, and we do have an upper limit for that, of course. And primarily that's about, like I could find you markets in the US where there's 30 to 50 competitors. There's quite a few of those, right? Whether they're good, high quality or not, it's just that there's so many of them that you get lost below, but in amongst all that in various marketing channels that you might use. And it's really difficult to poke your head up above that and get people to take any notice of you, right? Because there's just too many. It's like you're going up against an army kind of thing. And, as an individual going up against an army, even if you're the best in the world, just force of numbers can overwhelm you in some circumstances. If the competition in your potential market is lower, but some of them are doing a really amazing job, look, I would look at them and see what they're doing. I think just because one business is doing well organically doesn't mean no other business can do well organically. I think that, so you can say, like, I see this a lot, particularly in Australia for some reason, is that there are businesses when you look at them, they look like they're doing very well organically, but they're not actually doing anything active in the SEO space, right? They don't appear to be doing anything on their website. They're not posting fresh content. They're not doing any of that sort of thing. And I think in some markets, certain businesses get to the top organically just because they were the first there. And they might have done a lot of work years ago, but they kind of slacked off and they don't really do it anymore. That is an opportunity. Yes, they might be doing really well, but that doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of the fact that they're not doing anything. So, like, as in, if you come in there with an active SEO strategy and start, doing things better than they are right now, because Google loves what's happening now as much as, or more than they love what's happened in the past. You can make inroads into that, and there may even be SEO avenues that they haven't even explored yet that you can explore. So that's why I say I think there's a lot of nuance to that conversation that I don't think are helpful when you're, or are a big enough barrier to you when you're in the market selection stage at the start of your business. So yeah, that's probably my answer, is that I don't focus on it too much. All right, next question. We've got another one here. This one's from the Terminator on YouTube. Hello, the Terminator. The Terminator asks, what are your profit margins and how do you calculate them? All right, so, well, if we're talking about high ticket dropshipping, that's a fairly easy one in the sense of how they're calculated, because dropshipping is a fairly simple business model. So profit margins will differ from supplier to supplier. That's the first thing to say. So if I've got 10 suppliers for my high ticket dropshipping website, they're going to have different margins. I might have one that's 30% gross. I might have one that's 50% gross. I might have one that's 25% gross. So you're going to get a range, right? You're not going to have every supplier with exactly the same. You might have some that are the same, but you're not going to have them all be exactly the same if you've got a number of suppliers. So the gross margin obviously is just simply the calculation between what price you're selling it from minus what price you're buying it off the supplier from. So they're going to give you a price list with your buy price on it, your wholesale price. And then if you're in the US, usually they're going to say this is the minimum advertised retail price you can sell it at, which is where you're going to sell it at. Or sometimes if you're like in Australia or something like that, you don't have that. They might give you a recommended retail price or something. So it's going to be the retail price minus the buy price. That's your gross margin. And so from that, you're going to then subtract all the costs you incur to sell that product, and you're going to come up with your net margin, right? So, you're going to have things like, if you're doing free shipping, you're going to cover the cost of shipping. The cost of the shipping is going to come out of that margin. If you're spending money on ads to sell the product, you're going to work out what's your cost per sale, right? And that's going to come out of that margin. And so there's not a lot else, to be honest. There's some small subscription-based costs, like for $30 a month for Shopify, or those sort of things. There's not a lot of other costs there, but that's how you calculate your margins. And you'll track, and you should be tracking all of that in some sort of tool to help you understand what the costs are for sales, so that you can see actually where your true profit lies and all of that sort of thing. So in the beginning, you can actually do that with a very simple spreadsheet, which is one that we provide our students in Dropship Breakthrough. We give them a financial tracking sheet that can literally do the job for you until you get much further down the track. But dropshipping from a financial perspective is a very simple business model. You don't have a lot of big overheads, and you have a fairly limited number of them. So it's not hard to do these calculations. If I looked at the averages, industry, like high ticket dropshipping averages, an average gross margin probably is around high 20s to 30%. You definitely get them higher than that, and you definitely get them lower than that. An average at scale net margin is probably about 15% at scale. And I mean, like, if you're multi-million-dollar plus stores, when you're at lower numbers, it's easy to be more profitable. But when you really got to do things at scale, the margin tends to go down a little bit, right? Because you incur more overheads, and you're going to probably be investing more to get a scale with the traffic. So, but 15%, that's actually the average in the US for any type of business. So that's not a bad thing. Some people hear that number and they're like, oh, that's really low. But sure, what if your business is doing $1 million a month in revenue? What's 15% of that? You're putting it in your pocket. It's pretty good if you ask me. So that's my answer, the Terminator. Thank you very much for your question. Next question. Somebody's having a bit of a joke here. What color should I make the add to cart button? Lol, JK jokes. Well, look, yeah. It's not an important question, but I'll give you an answer all the same. Your add to cart button should be a color that contrasts from the rest of your website. So don't make it a color that you've used everywhere else on your website. Your call to actions, and your add to cart button is a call to action, should be a different color or a color that it should be not just a different color, but not a complementary color. It should be a contrasting color to the primary color on your website. Now, I'm not somebody who believes you should have a rainbow website, okay? You should not have a vast array of colors used on your website. You want, like, as in, your branding and all that sort of thing. 2 colors. That's all you need. 2 colors and white. That's what's going to be on your website. Now, to find a contrasting color, you need to look at a color wheel. So a contrasting color is, if you look at a color wheel, which is like a rainbow going around a wheel kind of thing, like different colors. On a color wheel, contrasting colors are opposite each other. So if you've got a pinpoint in the center of the wheel, there's a color here. This is really hard because it's mirrored. The contrasting one's going to be up there to here, right? Opposite sides of the color wheel. So if you want to see a good way to find good color combinations and contrasting colors, just go to Google and search Canva color combinations. And the first result you should get, organic result, should be a blog post from Canva, which is an online graphic design tool. And it's got some really helpful information about all of this sort of stuff and to help you identify something. So there is no best color for your add to cart button. It's not blue. It's not green. It's contrasting colors, so it pops off the page and grabs people's attention. But what I will give you here is a little extra dark lord tactic for add to cart buttons. Try changing it from add to cart to something like secure yours now. Right? So add to cart is not outcome focused. It's not actually outcome focused. Somebody isn't shopping on your website to add something to cart, right? They're on your website to get a product. So when you use something like secure yours today, it implies that if they take that action, something good for them is going to happen. This is a very little psychological hack thing, if you like, but try it out. I have seen multiple people, including myself, who play around with that and see an increase in their add to cart rate. And ergo, then that often flows into an increased conversion rate. So I'll just throw that one in there for free, but thanks for the question. Not so much of a joke, eh? All right, so next question, just going down the list here, and they're coming in a bit quicker, so my apologies if I miss everybody, but because we're going to wrap this up soonish. But another question coming in from Superman over on YouTube. Thanks for being here, Superman. Do you think it's possible to succeed with 4 to 5 week shipping? I am thinking about ocean freight with furniture. Look, do I think it's possible to succeed? It's possible, but it's not ideal. And the answer is going to be, if somebody's in the market for this furniture, or they're in the market for furniture, right, which is not a branded space, so people will just buy whatever meets their requirements usually, except for the really up luxury end of the market where people do often buy on brand. There are some brands that people will buy. So if they're looking, people are going to be looking at multiple websites, right? Comparison shopping all the time. So let's say they see your product with a 4 to 5 week shipping time and they like it. They look at another website and they see a product they like just as much with a 2 to 3 day shipping time. Which one are they going to buy? They're probably not going to buy yours, right? Honestly, I mean, unless there is something wildly unique about your product that would lead somebody to waiting 4 to 5 weeks for it when they have something that comes with the faster shipping time, I don't think it's as likely to work for you. Now, that's the first reason why I don't like that. The second reason is why. Why would you want to do ocean shipping with furniture? I mean, I don't know what country you're in. If you're in the US, there are a plethora of local suppliers that you can work with. Like so many, it's not funny, that you don't need to get stuff from overseas. There is no point to that. It's not a necessity. If you're in a really small, more obscure country that didn't have a large base with, locally stored or warehouse stuff, then maybe I could say that might be something you would consider. But in a larger country, I just don't think, like the homeware space, once again, I wouldn't do furniture either. But the homeware space is massive in any country with an established e-commerce market. So there are local brands and suppliers that you can work with in the first place. So that would be my first thing. Like I just don't see, unless you're getting a relationship with a really desirable product that is just not available in your country yet. Possibly there may be exceptions to this rule, but ocean shipping as well. you've got a higher chance that those products are going to be damaged. There's going to be a problem with the shipping container. The shipping container is going to fall off the side of the ship. It's going to get waterlogged. And what are you going to do then when it lands on the dock, or it turns up at the customer's door and it's crap, or it's broken, or it's damaged? How are you going to send it back to the supplier? You're not going to send it back to the supplier on ocean freight, right? So you're going to be stuck with it, because there are going to be circumstances where you have to accept a return on that product. So if you're working with a local supplier and a product's damaged, well, the product just has to go back to the supplier's warehouse, right? Which is, once again, only going to take a few days. And it's going to be fairly easy to arrange and do. If they're overseas, you're going to get stuck with it. You're not going to be able to return it. They may not agree to send you a new one. And so the responsibility is still yours, because you sold the product. So you can't palm the customer off onto the overseas supplier. They're not going to have a bar of that either. So it's best high ticket drop shipping, which is the drop shipping that works, right? In the long term, is with local suppliers. That's a hard and fast rule that we have. I don't really recommend anything else. So thanks for the questions, Superman. Facebook user here asks, what's the fee during the exchange with the supplier? Do they take a big chunk of your profit? No, there's no fee, right? So if we're talking, I assume you mean when you're talking about exchange, like customer buys a product off you, and then this is how it works in dropshipping. Customer pays you, you go place the order with the supplier, you pay the supplier your price, and then the product gets shipped to the customer, and you're left in your hand with the difference between the price you paid for it and the price you sold it for. That's your profit. And then obviously you're going to minus your other expenses out of that, and you're left with your net profit. There is not usually any additional fee involved there, right? So the supplier makes money from the price they charge you. It's costing them less than that to either buy it themselves or manufacture it. So they have their margin built into that price already. So then they don't have to charge you anything else on top of that, unless they're arranging the shipping for you. In which case, if you're doing free shipping on your website and you're not charging the customer for the shipping, which is a choice you can make or not make, depending on a range of factors, then they may charge you a shipping fee, which you're covering, and that's going to come out of your gross profit margin, which once again is often fine. So there's no additional costs as you would call a fee. So I hope that's what you're referring to, but thank you for the question there. I'm just going down the list here. We're going all for live questions here. This is great. People are asking a lot of questions. Next question is Superman again. Thanks, Superman. What's your Google ad strategy? Is it on your podcast? Well, I actually talked about this a little bit earlier, about the difficulty of teaching a proper Google Ads strategy via audio or on social media. Our Google Ads strategy, we call it, we primarily focus on Google Shopping, but there is a role to play for retargeting ads on the display network as well as search text ads. But we do focus primarily on Google Shopping because obviously it's an e-commerce channel, you know, and it's got a lot of advantages for what we do in high ticket drop shipping. Now, I will say the Google ad strategy for high ticket drop shipping is very different to most of what happens in e-commerce or for selling low ticket products. Okay. And Google ads is most useful here as a bottom of funnel, middle to bottom of funnel strategy only. It is not good at the top of the funnel. Right. So if you look at search traffic, it can be categorized into people who are ready to buy now and people who are still in the education phase, learning phase, and they're doing more broad type searches. High ticket dropshipping paid ads does not work at the top there very well. That is all about organic traffic, right? Search engine optimization, organic search traffic is the number one traffic channel over time for high ticket dropshipping businesses. Paid ads are great in the beginning, and you always use them, but they will only profitably get you so far. And so they're not the only thing we do. Our Google Ads strategy, we call the inverted shopping funnel. That's our name for it. It's a particular method of using multiple Google shopping campaigns to be able to pay, to segment the search terms that are coming in. For this to make any sense, you might need to have some knowledge of Google Ads. So if you do, this might make some sense. But we don't just we don't use smart shopping campaigns or any Google automation. We've tested that a lot of times. It doesn't work at this point for high ticket dropshipping. So we have a very specific way of using multiple Google shopping campaigns to ensure that we only spend are very competitive on high value search terms and put less value on low value search terms. So it's going to sound very broad. It is very difficult to teach on a podcast. We certainly do have episodes where we talk about it. In our program, we have a whole module, which is basically a course in and of itself, dedicated to how you do it, and you actually watch me doing it on the screen. So that's what I will say. Okay, I'm going to go down and see who else is answering questions. Will comes back and asks, I was just wondering if you had any advice for someone just starting out in the high ticket dropshipping space. Well, I have a lot of advice for people just starting out in the high ticket dropshipping space, so I'm sure I won't get it all across here. But my advice for you, if you are just starting out in the high ticket space, is a few things. Advice I would give to anybody: find a mentor or mentors and learn how to do it from somebody who knows how to do it. Right? Don't try and make it up yourself. You could over time succeed at that, but you're going to make a ton of mistakes. You're going to lose a lot of time, and you are going to lose money 100%, right? You're going to do the wrong things sometimes. You might get it together over time, but it's going to take you longer, and it's going to be more expensive than it should be. So find somebody who knows what they're doing, whoever that is. There's not a lot of people when it comes to high ticket dropshipping, but do find somebody and learn from them, seek their advice, and that sort of thing. That's going to significantly cut down the chance that you make mistakes, that you lose time, and that you lose money. So that's the first thing. Do that. Follow the right plan and the right strategy. So I get that recently not a lot of people have heard about high ticket dropshipping. It's actually been around for way longer than any of the stuff that gets popularized on social media these days, like AliExpress dropshipping. That dumpster fire is finally dying. People have only been talking about that for 4 or 5 years. Other low ticket dropshipping, you hear people talking about that stuff. That's all actually pretty new. I get that people don't know a lot about high ticket dropshipping, or a lot of people, this is a new concept. It only works in a very specific way. So you can't make it up yourself. Like, it's been around I know people that have done it for 20 years. I've been doing it for 8 years. I've mucked around with it any number of ways over that time, tried new things, tried to get different things to work. It works in a very specific way. If you want to grow a big high ticket dropshipping business, and where can you take them? You could take them to $10 million a year plus in annual revenue. So they can be 8-figure businesses a year. They can't be 9-figure businesses as just a dropshipping business, but they can make it into the 8-figure range, and they can certainly easily make it into multiple 7 figures a year in annual revenue. But if you want to get there, you've got to do the right things in the right way. So if you don't follow doing the right strategies and the right tactics, etc., in the right way, and if you're not prepared to do it until it works, then you're not going to get to those levels. So you might as well not dream about it. All right. Like, I guess, so learn from the right person, learn the right thing from the right person, and then be patient. Right. So, I might sound like your parents when I say this, but while dropshipping is easy to get into, it has a low barrier to entry and all of that sort of thing, it's still a business. It's not easy, right? And nobody should ever market dropshipping as being easy. It's simple, but that doesn't mean easy, right? Those two words do not have the same definition. So it's not easy. You're going to have to put in work. It's not going to cost you a lot of money to start compared to traditional businesses, but you are going to have to put in some real work here over time, and you're going to have to do it consistently. So discipline, consistency, patience, and that's what's going to see you through, assuming you apply those qualities to the right plan and the right strategy. So that's literally my advice. It sounds like really cliched and simple advice, but that's because it's true also. And as well, that's going to apply to any business that you might want to start, is that you're going to have to exhibit those things. This will not happen for you overnight. Once again, If you're looking to get into drop shipping and you're like, I have to be making serious money in 30 days or 60 days or something like that, turn around, walk the other way. That will never happen. That does not happen. And yes, you might say, well, I saw Buggerlugs over on TikTok posting about blah, blah, and blah. Or somebody sent me this website of these fucking Burks in England standing out the front of a castle in front of, like $500,000 Lamborghinis, talking about how they set up dropshipping businesses for people. That's all fake, right? You see somebody who's posting, I'm making $1 million a month dropshipping, and all they've got to show for it is no sort of social proof about them helping other people or anything like that, and they've just got some screenshots. 90% of the time, it's fake, right? That stuff doesn't happen. It's not that easy, right? So don't believe that. But like I say, there is also legitimate places to learn this stuff from. So go and find those places. That's my advice on that one. Thank you very much for the question. The Terminator asks, what exactly is SEO? SEO is an acronym that stands for search engine optimization. So search engine optimization, and this is my definition, there's probably a much better one online if you Google it, but search engine optimization is employing a range of strategies and practices on your website and off your website to make it easier for search engines to find your website, and to make your website search engines to think that your website is the best thing for them to show on their search results. So when you go to Google and you search for something, at the top of the page of results, you're going to see some ads, right? The first thing you're going to see usually is some Google shopping ads with the pictures of the product and the prices. Next, you might see some ads like text ads, and it'll say in a little box next to the headline ad. Below that, you'll see the organic search results, right? They're not paid. They're not paid to be there. They're there because the search engine, and it's the same for Bing or Yahoo or any other search engine, the search engine thinks those are the best results that match most closely with that keyword that the person has searched. And so when we say we're doing SEO on our website, what we're doing is we are identifying search terms that we think have the most value for our website. I.e., what that means is they are the search terms that are most likely for customers to end up buying a product on the other end of that search term. And we are doing things on our website that will help search engines to place our website or relevant pages on our website at the top of those organic results for those search terms that we deem to be, the customers that we can help with the products that we sell. And so if you can get good pages ranking at the top of the search results for search terms that have good volume behind them, you're not paying for it every time somebody clicks on your ad, on your organic search result. It does actually cost you something to get there. But once you're there and you can maintain that, every time somebody clicks on that, as opposed to an ad, you don't pay anything. So while we don't say it's free traffic, because it's not technically free traffic, over time, the cost of that traffic is astronomically less than paid traffic. And so what that means is that it's your profit margins when you make sales off that traffic are much better than you would get off paid traffic. And you can reach much more traffic with those sort of results than you can with paid traffic for high ticket products. I'm not saying that's the case for every type of product in the world, but for high ticket products that are drop shipped, that is 100% the case. Over time, if you do SEO right, you will get way more traffic than you can get from paid ads alone. So that is exactly what, well, not exactly, but that's my definition and my explanation of what SEO is. All right, guys, look, we're up to 2 hours here. I'm out of time. Thank you very much, though, for all the people who are here right now or who have been here. I really appreciate you coming and checking this out. As I said at the start, we are going to be doing this a bit more regularly. I used to be very frequent with this. I used to do these lives, I think, once a week at one point on our YouTube channel or our Facebook group or our Facebook page. I'm not going to do them once a week, but we'll probably stop in here once a month and do various things, whether that's question and answers like this, or maybe I'll come on and teach something about how to get dropshipping. And yeah, thanks for being here. I appreciate you very much. I hope these questions were helpful for you. If you're listening in and you're like, well, I want to jump in and learn from John and Ben. Ben's not here, but he's my partner in our podcast and our business. You can see going along the bottom of the screen right now, it says if you want to get started with us, just go to dropshipbreakthrough.com/join, and you'll learn there how you can jump in and join Dropship Breakthrough. So until next time, bye. Thanks very much for being here.